Alrighty, welcome back to another Exaforge Devlog. I'm just going to go over this screen that you see right here very briefly. I'll get to the details of what I changed at the end of the video, and I want to talk about how I centered this text right away. So I'll just jump into that. So obviously, I figured out how to center the text, and so if you're trying to do the same thing that I did, or if you're trying to follow what I did in the last video and get that same result and make sure it's centered, um, then here is how to do that. All right, so really let me back up here and open up some scenes. That one for now. Let's close you. Come back to you later. All right. Okay, so here we go. So in the last video, I had a slightly different structure for this planet overview text. I think I had a container object around, or container node around the HBox container. I've gotten rid of that because it wasn't needed. And the reason is because I learned since then that HBox container will automatically change its size based on its contents. Now, that wasn't the only thing that I needed to change to get it to work. You'll recall over here I've got it hovering in 3D. And what I found was that, so here you go. So if I select the sprite, you can see that the bounding box is bigger than the text. There's a bunch of space over here on the right end. And what I found is that even though this resized properly, as far as I could tell, when I went over into the main scene, I would get a scenario where that little bit of extra space was still showing up and forcing everything to the far left side of the label. And that's not what we want. We obviously want it to be centered like you saw at the very beginning there. So what I did to do that is here in the script file for the two-dimensional HUD, so this scene right here, looking at the script for that right now. I got it set up so that when you change the name, and that is done through this property here. So when you change the name, it comes to this setter value or setter method. I'm not exactly sure what it's called in C#, but it comes down here, and here's where it changes the actual text. Now, to get it to change the size of this container, what I realized I needed to do is I needed to change the size of the viewport here because it's just hard-coded right here in the scene. So to achieve that, what I did was I have this call deferred, and then the point of that is to make sure that it's called on the next frame or the next tick. And if it does that, then we can be sure that Godot has calculated behind the scenes the proper width of the label. If we called it right away, there's a chance that Godot hasn't calculated the width of the label, and that way, if you went ahead and called it, you'd send over an incorrect size. At least that's the best of my understanding. So anyway, on the next tick, it's going to call resize container. And all that resize container does is it emits a signal, and that signal includes a vector2, which is the size of the new size of the label. And so to get it to resize this bounding box, what I did was I came down here. Here's the signal that it emits. I connected it to this node script, this one right here, and assigned it to this method right here. So this method does exactly what you'd think it does. It gets the sub viewport node one, and then it changes this size property. Let me show you how that works. there it is. It's getting that, and it just calls set size. I needed to convert the X and Y dimensions from the label passed in from floats to integers. So I just did a quick cast to do that. And the end result of that is what you see here. So yeah, here it is. The labels are now properly centered. And so I'm pretty pleased with that. All right, so that's it for now. The other things that I've done for the game is I've added the proper resource icons. You can see, so each planet has a specific type of resource that is possible on it. And so every planet of that type will have one of that resource available. And then I've also updated this information over here. So you can see the resource type is reflected over here. This is the yield value. And this is the population of the planet. Now you'll note if I click on all these others, they all have a population of 0. And that's because at the time being, I'm planning on having it set up so that you basically can't increase your population size except with special technologies. And so in order to get populations on these other planets, you're going to have to move them over there. So you start with 10, and then all of these other planets are uninhabited. Not quite as much as I had hoped to have done in my next video, but I figured that getting the labels centered was an important enough thing to describe how that was done, so I document that. Yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you for joining me.